Retail is a little more active. You're right about that, but they're not really driving the market. In a panic, they will, but it'll be too late. I mean, it'll be, I was saying buy gold at 700, 1,300, 1,900, 2,000. It's now close to 3,000. People just don't do it. It's fine. I'm not in charge of their finances, but people just don't do it. The funny thing is, Danielle, this is just human nature. When it spikes to 4,000 or 5,000, then they'll run out and buy it. They could have had it at 1,300, but they'll wait until it spikes. That's just human nature. The big buyers are the central banks. They're the players. Some institutions, some hedge funds, but mainly the central banks. And we know who they are. It's Russia and China, but also Vietnam is a big buyer. I mentioned their trade surplus earlier. Okay, what are they doing with the money? Well, one of the things they're doing is buying gold. Kazakhstan, Turkey, Iran's buying it. They're non-transparent, but they're buying it. And Mexico and many others. So the central banks are driving. The inflection point was 2010. From 1970 to 2010, central banks were net sellers. But since 2010, they've been net buyers. But the amount of buying has been going up. I mean, Russia has increased their gold reserves by 5 times. And in 2009, they were 600 tons. Today, they're about 3,000 tons. That's a 5 times increase in, it's 16 years, but that's still 500% more gold. By the way, that gold has saved them in the Ukrainian war because the U.S. put financial sanctions and tried to steal $300 billion of U.S. Treasury securities that Russia paid for with dollars that they made by selling oil. When we froze the U.S. Treasury securities, and now we're in the process of stealing them, they stole $50 billion out of the $300 billion to make a loan to Ukraine that's never going to get repaid. But Russia had put, Elvira Nabiullina, who's the head of the Central Bank of Russia, she had put 25% of their reserves in gold before the war in Ukraine, again, in this period since 2009. Now, here's one of the ironies that shows how much the U.S. doesn't understand about this. The war and the central bank buying and the kinds of things we've been talking about have driven up the price of gold so much that Russia has made $100 billion of profits on a mark-to-market basis on their gold. So, we froze $300 billion in Treasury securities, but they've been continuing to sell oil and natural gas, and they've made $100 billion on their gold, which thanks to us because we're the ones causing all the problems. So they're the driving force. Now, they have to be. Russia has been they've shown a lot of finesse in how they do it. They buy 10 tons a month, 20 tons a month. Some months they skip. Recently, they haven't reported anything. I don't think that means that they're not buying gold. I think it probably means they're buying the gold through the sovereign wealth fund instead of the central bank, which is what China does. China's been buying gold all along, but we don't really have hard data because they don't buy it through the central bank. They buy it through their sovereign wealth fund with something called SAFE, State Administration of Foreign Exchange. So they have these pockets where they can buy gold without putting it on the central bank balance sheet. But that's what's really driving the price of gold. And if you thought about it, you say, well, gee, why doesn't China just, announce what they're doing and, bid up the price of gold and make a lot of money? Well, the answer is they're not done buying.
Exactly.
See, if you were buying, you wouldn't want the price to go up until you have all you want. When you have enough, that's different. But if you're still a buyer, you want the price to be moderate. So what's going on is a great game involving the major powers, involving gold. There's more to it, but that's what's driving the price higher.
Just one more point to wrap, and it's a big one, but it's exactly 1 week since we saw the Zelensky-President Trump interaction in the White House. I'm curious to get what your analysis was of that. And there was talk again of a World War III brought forth by Zelensky. Overall thoughts there, Jim?
Well, it shows that Trump derangement syndrome is not, confined to the U.S. media. Speaking of World War III, my friend Chrystia Freeland came out the other day and said, I want Canada to build closer relations with UK, right, so we can rely on UK nuclear missiles to protect us from an attack by Trump. It's like, okay, who's the warmonger here? But anyone who understands Russia, the Russian way of war, international economics, and what's been going on in the Ukraine, was completely unsurprised by what Zelensky did. Anyone who believes, that we're fighting for democracy, there's no democracy in Ukraine. The political opponents have been put in jail. Zelensky's term expired last May. May 2024 was the end of his term. Since then, he's been a military dictator. Political opponents are all in jail. There's no free. This idea we're fighting for freedom is a joke. It's a neo-Nazi sympathetic dictatorship. That's who you're fighting for. Trump understands that. I think, in particular, John Ratcliffe at CIA, Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, certainly Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon. They all understand it, and they're determined to get out, in the best way possible. And everyone's like, "Oh, you're giving Putin what he wants." No, we're not. He already has it. I keep trying to explain to people, when you win a war, you get to keep stuff. Russia took the 4 provinces they want: Zaporizhzhia, Kherson, Donetsk, and Luhansk. They've got them. They're not giving them back. That's what happens when you lose the war. So if Trump brokers an agreement or forces an agreement that gives Russia those provinces as part of the Russian Federation, he's not making a gift to Putin. Putin won it in the war. All Trump's trying to do is stop the killing, and 700,000 dead Ukrainian young men and women. So